And now, the best 60-ish seconds of your week.
And with more than a month to go before he's actually sworn into office, Donald J. Trump is on the world stage showing what leadership really looks like. You know, after 4 years of Joe Biden and all that that's entailed, it's refreshing to see America standing straight and tall and gaining the world's respect. From his trip to Paris for the opening or reopening of Notre Dame and his little tete-a-tete there with Joe Biden, causing many people again to speculate about who she might have voted for in November, although I think we all know. He has shown what it takes and what it is to be a true leader. And then he comes back home, goes to the New York Stock Exchange earlier this week as the man of the year, and is welcomed by Manhattan's elite there on the trading floor, giving him their jacket, all of them wearing their MAGA hats, et cetera, and him walking through there like a rock star. It's really fascinating to see what is happening to American culture because of what occurred on November 5th. But the key is, it's about leadership. I said throughout the campaign that the difference between the two campaigns and the two candidates was very simple. It was strength versus weakness. And we saw the strength of Donald Trump throughout the campaign from the moment he raised his fist in Butler, PA, until election night. And now we've seen it in the post-election period and the interregnum between now and Inauguration Day. Inauguration Day can't come quite fast enough. And as I reported last week, the assassination of healthcare executive Brian Thompson occurred right outside the New York Hilton, where we were there celebrating the Pennsylvania Society weekend just a couple of days before we arrived, one day before I got there, and where the conference that Thompson was scheduled to speak at was occurring. Now, the Pennsylvania police have captured Luigi Mangione, the alleged suspect in that cold-blooded murder. And good thing our governor here in Pennsylvania showed up, because he rushed to the scene to make some sort of statement. I mean, his crass, craven, and over-the-top self-promotion is one of the reasons why people like Senator John Fetterman warned Kamala Harris not to select him as her vice presidential running mate, because there's simply nothing that he won't do when a television camera light comes on, and he's like a moth to a flame to do anything he possibly can to get his mug on television without having anything whatsoever to have done with that capture. It was some really, really civic-minded, smart, observant people in Altoona, PA, at a McDonald's who reported it to police that they saw somebody fitting the description of the alleged killer in New York. And thank God for them, they are the real heroes. And in the aftermath of the assassination of Brian Thompson, what is really amazing to see is not just the shameless self-promotion of Josh Shapiro, but what the American left has to say about this. People who are lauding, think about that, lauding the cold-blooded murder of one of our fellow citizens, including a professor at the University of Pennsylvania, where my dear mom graduated, named Julia Alekseyeva, who is, not coincidentally, a member of the Democratic Socialists of America, you know who they are, and has lauded him as an icon. Now, she took all that down after the appropriate outrage and protests came forward, but it was there for all the world to see. A professor at a quote-unquote elite institution, an Ivy League school here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Funding from any governmental entity ought to be cut off to that university until they get rid of these nutty left professors. This is the same University of Pennsylvania whose president went before Congress not long ago and refused to condemn the attacks, cold-blooded murders of Israelis on October 7th, 2023. That's what's going on in our institutions of higher learning. This particular professor had a great-grandmother who was an officer in the Red Army when they took over Russia. They were a swell gang, and she's written about how great Marx and Lenin and Stalin, again, a really sweet guy, have been. These are people educating our children. There is something fundamentally wrong with all of that. And the American left couldn't let it go when there was justice done for Daniel Penny in that trial up in New York, where they reduced the charges, thinking that they had trapped him into an automatic conviction by the jury. The jury came back and said, no, full acquittal for Daniel Penny for taking down a terrorist on a subway. But the American left, you know, the one woman's out there, GD them, GD America. It reminded me of the Reverend Jeremiah Wright, Barack Obama's pastor, who said GD America back before Obama began running for president. That's the American left today, and we ought to be pointing it out constantly. And one final thought. We've got a bunch of drones over New Jersey, and now some say wafting over into Philadelphia. Now, these aren't those little model things that, you know, young people like to play with and amateur hobbyists like to create. These things are as big, some people say, as SUVs. They go dark when they're approached by, and the FBI tells us simply that they are not from a foreign power and no threat to the American people. Well, how do they know that? They have an obligation, in my judgment, to be far more transparent with the American people, telling us what they actually know. And if they're not from a foreign power, where the heck are they from? Because they've ruled out, you know, United States military and foreign military. So who has the capacity and capability of putting gigantic drones into the sky, many, many, many of them, and potentially putting the American people at risk? Congressman from New Jersey, Jeff Van Drew, says that there is a mothership from Iran hovering not far off the east coast of the United States and launching these drones. Now, it remains to be seen whether or not that is factual, but that's what he is saying comes from the highest levels of intelligence that he's spoken with. So the key here now is let's simply have the truth. I have little doubt that after January 20th, we'll get some of it. And for now, that is the best 60-ish seconds of your week.
We the people tell the government what to do. It doesn't tell us. We the people are the driver. The government is the car. And we decide where it should go and by what route and how fast. Almost all the world's constitutions are documents in which governments tell the people what their privileges are. Our Constitution is a document in which we the people tell the government what it is allowed to do. We the people are free. This belief has been the underlying basis for everything I've tried to do these past 8 years.